What's up, Star Wars fans? My name is Prince, and I'm an urban acolyte. If y'all don't mind, today, I just want to talk about my main man, Finn, because I don't think anyone else is really saying too much about Finn in their Episode 9 rumor/prediction videos. I mean, I could be wrong, and maybe I am, because I don't really watch those videos. But anyway, I'll tell you the rumors that I have heard. I've heard that Finn is going to display a new set of skills in Star Wars Episode 9. I've heard that Finn might actually pilot the Millennium Falcon. We've seen the pictures of Finn, Poe, and Chewie on some forest or some grassland plains planet, and I actually think that those might be two separate planets. People love seeing the interactions between Finn and Poe in The Force Awakens, and they were originally going to be paired together for the Canto Bight scenes in The Last Jedi. Now, I don't know if them being paired together will be a buddy cop thing like their original scenes in The Last Jedi were going to be, but the Poe Dameron comic book has pushed Poe into this role as the emerging leader of the Resistance. Poe is presented to us as this kid whose mother is like Top Gun and his father's like Master Chief or something. And we haven't really seen all of those skills played out on the big screen. Now, of course, there's Finn, FN 2187, who was the standout cadet in his class, the one who Phasma once thought would rise above the ranks of a stormtrooper and become an officer within the First Order. Now, I'm not going to talk about how awesome Finn was as a stormtrooper cadet, because I've done that in a bunch of videos that I put out over the last 2 years already. I mean, just go check out my Finn video playlist. But to address the question as to how Finn could have been so awesome if he was only a janitor, well, I've already answered that one too. Cadets don't actually have jobs outside of their training other than to clean. Any military veteran in the real world will tell you that. And Cardinal talks about it in the Captain Phasma novel too. Finn was a janitor, and he was in charge of all the other cadets who were also janitors. He was the leader of his fire team, and when he wasn't cranking, I mean, that's what we called it on my ship, the mighty USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76. When Finn wasn't off cranking, he was being really awesome to the point that I think he might be force sensitive. But enough about the past. Let's talk about the present. Let's talk about Finn from the man playing him, John Boyega himself. So the big homie Chris Ryans, who has a new Star Wars channel called Broaxium, the big homie tweeted John Boyega a few days ago about Star Wars Episode 9. So Chris said, hopefully my man John Boyega will truly shine in Episode 9, and the Finn character will be shown as the BA hero that I've been waiting for him to be since Episode 7. And hopefully he'll wield a lightsaber again too. Now, he actually got a reply from John Boyega, who said, "We've got you on this one, bro. Trust me." So I don't know how... I mean, how do we take that? Finn is going to be shown as the hero we've been waiting to see? Finn is going to wield a lightsaber again? I'm hoping for all of the above. And if you happen to be new here to this channel, well, let me point you to this video from January of 2016, or maybe that was 2017, that I did about Finn's lightsaber scenes being cut from The Force Awakens. So my source for everything in that video came from Jason Ward at Making Star Wars. Jason basically leaked an entire outline from an earlier version of The Force Awakens. The concept artwork and the art of The Force Awakens, along with The Force Awakens novel, it all lines up with what was in that outline. In it, Finn was the one who initially accepted Anakin's lightsaber. Now, we saw Maz hand it off to Finn after Rey ran, following her Force back vision, but that whole thing was originally going to be much different. The Force back scene was going to be a flashback where Maz told the story of how she acquired the lightsaber. The lightsaber was going to be the key to locating Luke Skywalker on ahch-to. Finn was going to use the lightsaber during the First Order's attack on Takodana, and Maz would then travel back to Dakar with the Resistance, where she would later tell Leia that Finn needed the lightsaber on his mission to Starkiller Base to find Rey. Finn was then going to use the lightsaber during the siege on Starkiller Base, and instead of Phasma dropping those shields, Finn was going to use the lightsaber to destroy those computers. So think of it as like a mirror to Kylo Ren's tantrum when he destroyed all that equipment earlier in the movie. Basically, Finn was going to be presented as like a mirror to Kylo Ren in an earlier version of The Force Awakens. I mean, looking back on this whole thing, even though Rey was always going to be the person who was destined to find Luke Skywalker, it was like Rey is the one caught in the middle, Ben Solo representing the dark side, and Finn representing the light. When you really think about it, Ben was born into the light. Leia's his mother, and she's made all these selfless choices to save the galaxy. She even decided against becoming a Jedi herself because she felt it was her responsibility to personally help rebuild the Republic and raise her son. Ben was the one who got to train with Luke, but for whatever reason, he had this affinity to the dark side. And I know the Ben Solo fangirls are going to say that it was Snoke's influence, but your boy had a choice, and he chose the dark side. He chose to kill his father, Han Solo. He chose, and he chose, and he chose, just like he continuously chose to ignore the pull to the light. Now, before you go and say, yeah, but he chose to save Rey. Yeah, he did. He chose to save Rey for a selfish reason. So that still means he chose the dark side over the light, because he could have helped Rey after they killed Snoke and his Praetorian guards. Now, Finn, on the other hand, he resisted the dark side. He rejected the First Order. And sure, maybe he wanted to run to save his own life, but he stopped to help Rey. When Finn wanted to run in The Last Jedi, it was because he hadn't chosen to join the Resistance. He thought he was going to go save Rey. In the end, when he finally made his choice, it was after learning that running would not stop the First Order. He had to stay and fight for himself, for the many people who suffered, like Rose's family, and for the countless other beings that he never even met. What I think played a part in Finn's character being changed, well, for one, if Finn had been running wild all over the place with Anakin's lightsaber, it would have confused everyone about the fact that Rey is the one who was supposed to rebuild the Jedi Order and stand against Kylo Ren. Also, John Boyega pointed this out when filming began for The Last Jedi. If Finn had acted a fool with a lightsaber in the first movie, well, that doesn't leave a lot of room for character development. Part of the whole comedic relief when it comes to Finn's character is he's literally learning about everything for the first time. I mean, I can recall trying to adapt to the real world after only 2 months at boot camp, and I'm pretty sure that I looked really funny to civilians. I mean, I can't even imagine what it would have been like if boot camp had been my only reality for 20 years of my life. I think that if there's a time gap between the events in The Last Jedi and Episode 9, Finn will have had enough time to adapt to his new role as soldier within the Resistance. I think he'll still have some comedic lines, but it won't be like in the previous 2 movies. I think Finn is going to display the skills mentioned during his time as a cadet with the First Order. Now, as for this whole Finn wielding a lightsaber, who knows? Right now, we only know of 2 lightsabers in the entire galaxy. Kylo Ren's lightsaber and Luke's original green lightsaber, which is somewhere on ahch-to, along with any other possible lightsabers that the caretakers have put away. And yes, Luke's lightsaber is there on ahch-to. The caretakers collected it and his other relics after Luke became one with the Force. But anyway, I don't know, y'all. I really just wanted to geek out about Finn for a moment. To be honest, that whole thing about Ben Solo being on one end of a spectrum and Finn being on the other, that sort of just came to me once I got into a flow state working on this video. And I think it's an interesting idea and something that I really, really hope will happen. I'm still sticking to the opinion that Finn is Force sensitive. And I know there are people who will be quite vocal in disagreeing with me on that one. And that's okay. I mean, Vice Admiral Holdo was from Catalina. It's a planet that has a deep connection to the Jedi. They're very spiritual. And Holdo turned out to be Force sensitive, and I don't think she displayed any traits or abilities. So you never know. All I'm saying is that there's no way you can look at Finn and what he was doing as a cadet and not think that he might be Force sensitive. I also don't see how anyone can be a fan of Darth Bane's story from Legends and not consider the possibility that Finn is also Force sensitive. I mean, since so far, he has some things in common with Bane and Kyle Katarn. I mean, I'm just saying, it's all there, and you don't have to strain to reach. But I'd like to hear from all of you. First off, how do you interpret what John Boyega said on Twitter? We've got you on this one, bro. Trust me. Does it mean that Finn is finally going to be the big deal we've been hoping to see? Honestly, I don't want JJ and his folks to do too much with Episode 9. I've actually got some ideas for how I'd like to see Finn's story go down, and it involves the streaming service. But I'll leave it at that. But what about you Finn fans? What would you like to see for Finn in Episode 9? And if you're a Finn hater, well, keep it clean if you disagree with any of this, because kids like to watch my Finn videos, so you'll probably get your comments deleted if YouTube doesn't flag them first. I'm just being honest. There are people who hate Finn's character to the point that they will harass John Boyega. Shout out to Geeks and Gamers. Keep it classy, Jeremy. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll be checking back to see what you all have to say. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click that subscribe button and take your first steps towards becoming an urban acolyte. Embark on the journey to become the hero of your own story and become a force for change in your community. Continue to support the channel. You can do that by checking out my last video on the Boba Fett movie and the Mandalorian series, or you can also check out this video about Ahsoka joining the Resistance in Star Wars Episode 9. Also, stay tuned for the 2-part series on the Chosen One prophecy coming later this week. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching. Y'all keep on breathing, and may the force of others be with you. Always.